Everybody. Okay, attendees. I think everyone is already here listening.
Okay, hello everyone, TGIF. This is the first time we've used this format in a webinar of this kind. And so we're working through some of the bugs. Hopefully there won't be too many more. We really appreciate everyone, joining, and hopefully we'll answer all your questions. Yeah, so I see all the closed captioning tests. On the next slide, we're going to do some self-introductions. My name is Tom Buick. I'm a national program leader with NIFA. I've been with NIFA since 2000, and I've been working with the Specialty Crop Research Initiative since 2008 when it was first initiated. Jessica?
Hi, everyone. I'm a national program leader with NIFA, and I joined the SCRI team about 10 months ago, so I'm happy to be here.
Megan.
And I'm Megan O'Reilly, program specialist with NIFA. I've been working with the Specialty Crop Research Initiative since 2010.
Take it away, Jessica. Oh, Megan.
Okay, this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending this out after it's been checked for 508 compliance. If you have any issues with Zoom, you can use the number that's listed here. And if you have questions during the presentation or when we do Q&A after, you can type those into the Q&A box. And there's the link where the conference will be posted.
All right, and we're going to start with NIFA's non-discrimination statement. We take discrimination very seriously here, and anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address that's listed on this slide. This slide also has contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. Language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request. So today we're going to give you a brief NIFA overview as well as an overview of the SCRI program. We'll talk about the details of the SCRI pre-application, RFPA, the evaluation process, and additional information and resources. And I'll get us started with a really brief overview of the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, which is commonly referred to as NIFA. So NIFA was created through the Food Conservation and Energy Act of 2008, also known as the Farm Bill, with the mission of investing in and advancing agricultural research, education, and extension to solve societal challenges, and the vision of catalyzing transformative discoveries, education, and engagement to address agricultural challenges. We're the federal partner of the land grant university system, and we support initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture. We also provide funding and strategic leadership for programs that make sure groundbreaking discoveries are reaching the people who need to know about them to put the findings into practice. NIFA covers a broad array of programs. I won't go into each of these individually, but you can see there is a wide breadth of different areas, and a lot of programs touch on several of these at once, including SCRI, which brings us to our next topic area, an overview of the Specialty Crop Research Initiative. And I'll hand the mic over to Tom for this one.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. I just need to make sure that Michelle is able to close caption. if Michelle, if you could come off mute and let me know.
Yes, I have been reassigned. Thank you.
Okay, great. So next slide, Jessica, please. I'm going to do the SCRI overview. These, starting with the purpose and priorities, in the Farm Bill, we were given 5 legislative focus areas. I'm not going to read those. They will be available. They're in the request for pre-applications as well. And so we are limited really to funding projects that address some combination of these 5 legislative focus areas. The next slide, what is a specialty crop? The legal definition is fruits and vegetables, tree nuts, dried fruit, horticulture, and nursery crops, including floriculture. We, USDA, developed a more detailed description of specialty crops that's used by all USDA agencies that work in the specialty crop area. And you can find that at the link that you see on the screen there. It's not an exhaustive list, but it gives you a pretty good idea of the kinds of crops that we deal with on a regular basis. The other thing to note is that there are probably 8 or 9 agencies at USDA that deal with specialty crops. We all have a different mission, and so the definition is modified to meet the mission of each agency. Okay, Jessica. So eligibility for SCRI is very broad, and you can read the things here. And if you look down towards the bottom, you'll see individuals are also eligible to apply to SCRI. And then groups consisting of 2 or more of any of the above entities are also eligible to apply. So this is a very because of the broad eligibility, we get a lot of applications, which is good. We're funding excellent projects. Next. So one of the things that was unique, it's not as unique anymore as time moves on. Some of the things that we initiated in 2008 have been adopted by other programs in the agency, but we have three project types. We have planning projects, standard research and extension projects, or SREPs, and then coordinated agricultural projects, or CAPs. And I'll describe those in a little bit more detail. We only have 2 application types. It's either a new application or it's a resubmission. Next. So one of the unique things about SRI back in 2008 was that we were actually the first program to adopt a systems approach to solving the challenges of the specialty crop industries. And this is a diagram that shows what we mean by a systems approach. You see that everything is surrounded by sustainability outcomes and impacts. The sustainability is the foundation of the whole program. We have different systems within the specialty crop arena: production system, distribution and processing, consumer and markets. And then there's individual disciplines that make up each of those systems. And we'll come back to this diagram as we talk about the project types. Next. So a standard research and extension project, the project period is up to 4 years. The budget is normally will not exceed $1 million per year, and a request less than $250,000 per project are discouraged. The purpose of a SREP is to support targeted problem-solving efforts that would not qualify in scope for support as a CAP. And we'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. We have done statistical analyses of all of the projects from 2008 through 2022. And we anticipate that the funding for most SREPs for 2023 will be close to the historical median. And you can see those numbers here. Those numbers are also in the request for pre-applications. So in for SREP, the pre-applications must bring together research and extension around a problem area or activity. For each SREP project, there is an expectation that an advisory panel will be formed to inform the project throughout its life, including the identification and prioritization of research and extension objectives. SREPs represent the focused science and applications studies portion of the figure that I showed, and Jessica will put that up again. So you see on the outside, plant development, genetics, physiology, harvest, distribution, efficiency, reduce environmental footprint, post-harvest, et cetera. So those, if you're addressing just one or two of those individual topic areas, then your project would qualify as an SREP. On the other hand, coordinated agricultural projects, again, have a project period of 4 years. Federal funds will not exceed $2 million per year. And the purpose is to address specific multiple components of a primary system or multiple components of multiple systems within the overall system, and also where primary systems overlap. Again, you can look at the statistical analysis of our funding, and you can see that the minimum award was just over 1.9 million. The maximum award was almost 11 million. So we have quite a wide range. And what we always encourage people to do is decide on what kind of project type you're going to have, decide on what your objectives are going to be, and then develop your budget to satisfy those objectives. If it's over the historical median, it doesn't disqualify you, but you need to, in a full application, you would need to provide a good justification in the budget narrative. On the next slide, so we're going to award caps to consortia or groups of qualified applicants to address multiple components of a primary system, an entire primary system, or problems that cut across primary systems. So you see that it's more complex in scope than an SREP. And because it's more complex, the budgets tend to be larger. There's more participants, and so the budgets do tend to be larger. And again, just going back to the diagram, so a cap would address all the components of each, either production, distribution, and processing, or consumers and markets, or it may be where two or more of those primary systems overlap. Research and extension planning projects, these are limited to 12 months. Federal funds are up to $50,000 per project. And there's two types of planning projects. We want to provide assistance to applicants in the development of quality future SREP or CAP proposals, which is a grant planning project, or we want to provide assistance to consumers, producers, industry groups, academics to develop strategic research and extension plans, including goals, objectives, priorities, which is a strategic planning project. The expectation is that the plans that are developed from a strategic planning project could provide the relevance bases for future SCRI applications. So this is one of the questions we have been getting often about the matching requirement. So when SCRI was authorized in 2008, it included a requirement that federal funds be matched dollar for dollar with non-federal funds. That requirement was waived in the 2014 Farm Bill, but was reinstated in the 2018 Farm Bill. However, for fiscal years 2019 through 2022, NIFA has waived the matching requirement because Congress provided us the authority to do that through the appropriations process. NIFA is currently operating under a continuing resolution, or a CR, until December, it's not 12th, it's 16th of this year, which means we currently have the same authorities as we had in 2022. So currently, matching is not required. Next slide. We say no matching, but stay tuned. When the current CR expires, Congress will have to do one of two things. They'll either have to extend the current CR to some time in the future, or they could put us on a continuing resolution for the entire fiscal year. They could also pass a new appropriations bill. If Congress passes a new appropriations bill, the authorization to waive the matching requirement would have to be included in that new bill. If such an authorization is not included, matching would be required. Our budget office will notify us within days of enactment if there is a new budget passed, and we will pass that information on to the applicants. We anticipate if a new budget is passed, that Congress will include the authorization to waive the matching requirement.
All right, so now I'm going to dig into the details of the pre-application. So we've made some changes from previous years, so we really want to highlight those. One of the new things that we're asking for is 3 keywords, and that list of keyword options can be found in Appendix 4 of the RFPA. This is going to help us make sure that your pre-applications are reviewed by an appropriate panel of industry representatives. So these are really important. We also made some changes that are specific to SREPs and CAPs. We shortened the length of the stakeholder relevance statement to 6 pages. You'll need to put the logic model in Appendix A. Industry and stakeholder support letters need to be combined into a single PDF and put into Appendix B. And we have a new naming convention for each of the separate PDFs, which you can find on page 16 of the RFPA. These changes might seem a little dry, but these small things are really important for the reviewer of your application. So make sure that you read the RFPA a few times to really understand the nuances of how to put your application together. Another thing that's different is that you shouldn't submit a logic model if you are submitting a planning project, but you can have letters of support. So again, this is different from last year. And a little tip here, when you combine your support letters into a PDF, consider including a list of who provided letters of support. This is hugely helpful for reviewers who are looking through these proposals. One thing we've already gotten questions about from previous applicants is, if you applied before, do you need to respond to the comments from the previous relevance review of your pre-application? And the answer is no. You don't need to provide a response to a previous year's relevance review. For the pre-applications, you won't need to have a detailed budget or budget narrative. We'll ask for all that if you're invited to submit a full application, so you don't need to focus on that for the pre-applications. You will need to make sure for the pre-applications that you limit your co-investigators to 6 people. So if you get invited to submit a full application, you can add in as many other co-investigators as you need to. There's no team size limit for full applications, but for the pre-applications, we want to help manage the time commitment of the industry reviewers. So that's why we have this cap. Okay, so where can you find the RFPA? It's available on our website under the funding opportunities section. The deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern time on January 12th, 2023. And the pre-application needs to be submitted through grants.gov. We're real strict with the deadline, so get your pre-applications in early, especially if you've never submitted one before. Grants.gov can be a little tricky to navigate, so you might get error messages if your attachments are in the wrong format. Basically, give yourself time to find the potential errors and fix them so you're not scrambling at 4:59 p.m. to convert a Word document into a PDF. Some more basic information about the program. We have about $76 million this year for the SCRI program. Our assistance listing number is 10.309, and our funding opportunity number, that's that FON, is USDA NIFA SARI 009502. And our program code is SCRI. This information is also all in the RFPA, but we're putting it in here because it's pretty important info. And you know, I noted that you had to submit through grants.gov. NIFA only accepts electronic application submissions, so we can't accept paper applications. We have a link here to our grants application guide. Look at this document, even if you've submitted before, because it has a lot of important information in it. We get a lot of questions that are directly answered in this document, so check it out before you reach out to us. Also, all your application documents must be in PDF format. And this is really important to know because grants.gov will let you upload a Word document, but the NIFA system won't process it. So on our end, it shows up as an error. So you have to make sure to convert all your documents to PDF format or they won't be included in your application. And please don't use third-party PDF builders like the free ones you can find online. All right, Tom, I'll pass it back to you to talk about the proposal evaluation process.
Thanks, Jessica. So this is a diagram of our evaluation process. We get the pre-applications and we sort them into panels of related crops or topics. And by topics, I mean produce, food safety, pollinator health, things of that nature. Our goal is to have 9 reviewers for each one of those panels. Last year, we had 16 panels, so the relevance review process, we manage a lot of reviewers. So the reviewers will produce individual reviews of each of the applications, pre-applications that they are assigned to, and they evaluate the relevance to industry challenges. They're not, we don't ask them to evaluate the science. They're strictly focused on the relevance to industry challenges. We have created a matrix to sort the pre-applications into high, medium, and low priority categories. And then individual results are discussed in a Zoom panel meeting, sort of like what we're doing now. And through the discussion, the relevance reviewers will decide which pre-application teams are invited to submit full applications. These are the criteria for the SREP and CAP projects. You can see this is, I think this is an error. So what I would tell you to do is to make sure you look in the RFPA at the evaluation criteria and be sure that you understand, you know, what we are asking the relevance reviewers to look for when they do the review. You notice that each of the criteria have a percentage that lets the reviewers know, you know, what is the most important thing. And you can see it starts with stakeholders letters clearly demonstrating that project goals and objectives arose from challenges identified by stakeholders. So we want this to be a bottom-up kind of a process, not a scientist down sort of process. So and you'll see they're kind of arranged. These are now I'm thinking about it, these are the right ones. So again, make sure you look in the request for pre-applications, understand what we're asking the reviewers to look for, and then address that in your stakeholder relevance statement so that it's clear to the reviewers how you are satisfying these requirements. Next slide is for the planning projects. You can see there's fewer for a planning project. We understand that, you know, you wouldn't need a planning project if you already knew all the answers. So the page limit is less for a planning project in the stakeholder relevance statement. But again, we ask the reviewers to look for these items in the stakeholder relevance statement of the planning project. So, you know, really familiarize yourself with the evaluation criteria, because we demand that this is what the reviewers evaluate the pre-applications on. Now I'll turn it over to Megan to talk about the timeline for SCRI.
Thank you, Tom. The RFPA, of course, is open now. Applications will be due on January 12th. And then January to March, we will be handling the process of the industry relevance review of the pre-applications. And the determinations from that will result in notifications of whether applicants will be invited to submit a full application. And that will be happening in late March and April. I think we go to the next slide. This is an example of what the CRIS page looks like. CRIS stands for Current Research Information System, I think. And oh yeah, it's written right there. So this is one way that you can go in and look at projects that have been funded in SCRI previously. And the next page shows another way of searching, which is through our data gateway. And there's a link there to that. And this functions like a traditional database query where you can narrow down to the kinds of projects that you're looking for. Next. Here's links to several other resources that may be helpful to you. Funding opportunities, in case looking at the SCRI opportunity, you find that maybe it's not the best fit for the work you're hoping to do. You can look at the NIFA website to find other alternatives. Let's see, there's a, whoops. Okay, you can look through those, and this will be coming to you as a recording, so you can look at those later. Okay, next. And we have a listserv that we use to send out announcements. And this is, you can get added to that list by sending an email to me. We doesn't function as a discussion point, so you don't need to worry that this will end up filling up your email inbox. Essentially, we send out announcements of key activities with the SCRI program and a few other points of interest along the way. So feel free to send me a note if you want to be added. And if you have any questions, here again is our information. And we do have some questions in the Q&A box. So Tom and Jessica, if you want to just look at those. The first one is actually about full proposals, wondering if we're going to be asking for more detailed budget narratives.
Well, yeah, the short answer to that is yes. The budget forms that you have to use are quite detailed, and you'll need help from the grants office to actually get those submitted in a timely way. One of the most important things about the full application is the budget narrative. So, you know, the budget forms, it's just numbers, but you have to describe for the reviewers, the scientific merit reviewers, why you need those funds, how those funds are going to be used, and it kind of justify the request that you're making. One of the things that was on the slide that Megan didn't mention is that the full applications will probably be due around mid-May. So if you get notified at the beginning of April, you only have 6 weeks to get your full application together. You know, I wouldn't wait until you get your invitation, or you're not, to start putting some of these things together.
Okay, next question is, are there any updates on the match requirements for proposals to SCRI?
Well, we just talked about that. So the short answer there is no. We are under a continuing resolution until December 16th. Hopefully Congress doesn't let that lapse and we go into shutdown, but so hopefully we'll have some sort of clarity on that whole situation once Congress deals with, you know, funding of the federal government for the next fiscal year. But right now, no.
Okay. Could you provide some specifics on how the scientific review panel uses the stakeholder review in ranking the full proposals? Are there some solid guidelines for the scientific review panel on how the stakeholder reviews should be used in ranking proposals?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Ramesh. The Specialty Crop Committee of our Mission Area Advisory Board has recommended that the relevance review be of equal weight with the scientific merit review in developing funding recommendations. And we have attempted to do that since 2015. We have this year, we have developed guidance, very clear guidance on how that combination should be done. And so, the fact that you get invited means that the relevance panels felt that your project is important to specialty crop industries. And so right from the get-go, that's part of the overall process. But we have developed some very specific guidance on how to do that combination. It is a little tricky. And what we're trying to make sure that the panels apply those principles evenly across years. We do have return reviewers from one year to the next, but the panel composition does change. So we want to try to make sure that it's even across years.
Okay, I can answer a couple of these. There's one about whether we can see the list of funded proposals from the last cycle. And yes, when you click on that CRIS link, it should include the 2022 funded projects. And there's a question about whether avocado and citrus are considered specialty crops. And I'll refer you to, in the RFA, there is a link to the definition of a specialty crop and to the page where you can look for the list of those that's on the AMS website. I don't know the page number off the top.
Citruses, they are specialty crops.
Yes.
So
keep in mind for citrus that if you're looking at citrus greening disease, HLB, there's a separate grant that's specifically focused on that.
Okay, next question is, could you review what is required for full applications that differentiates them from pre-apps besides more detailed budget information?
Go ahead, Jessica.
Sure. So for the full application, you're really going to have to dig in deeper into your methodology. So the full application review is a scientific merit review. So it's really looking at the scientific merit of your project. So you're going to be asked more detailed questions about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Anything to add to that, Tom Megan?
Well, yeah, just as to demonstrate, the pre-applications are limited to 6 pages. Full applications are limited to 25 pages. So we expect a lot more detail in the full application.
Do you want to just read that and
yeah,
answer it?
Hi, Lois, how are you doing? It would be a new application because the project team has changed significantly.
Okay, are we looking for reviewers? If someone is interested in serving, how would they find out more information? The answer is yes. And we have a link that we can send where actually for reviewing for SCRI or for any program for NIFA, you go to our peer review system and you log yourself in as a potential reviewer, and it will ask you to fill out some questions about what your expertise is and also your demographic information. That's optional to provide that information. We are looking for industry relevance reviewers, and we also will be looking for scientific merit reviewers. So you could reach out to Jessica, Tom, or myself, just letting us know that you're interested.
Yeah, and I'll emphasize, in addition to filling out that PRS form that Megan mentioned, definitely reach out to us.
Yeah, and if you're an academic scientist or a government scientist and you know people in the specialty crop industries, ask them if they're interested in serving, and if they are, please send us their names, because we really are always recruiting.
Could you speak about the eligibility status for small business versus a startup? How does NIFA define a startup?
I'm not sure how NIFA defines a startup, but you saw on the slide for eligibility that just about anyone who has the capacity to conduct research and extension is eligible to apply to SCRI. So it doesn't matter if you're officially a small business or if you're a startup or whatever, you can apply as an individual. So pretty much everyone is eligible.
Will the page limit for the full proposal be the same for a CAP as for an SREP?
Yes.
Are there sample applications for each of the 3 types of SCRI projects?
Hello, Donnell. How are you? The short answer to that is no. It's kind of it's been problematic. At one point, we did have some examples on our website, but those got taken down because of confidentiality issues. We treat both pre-applications and full applications as intellectual property. And, I suppose if now that we're almost back to being fully staffed, we might develop some sample, examples, but we haven't done that.
But one thing you can do is look at that CRIS link that we provided, look at projects that have been funded in the past, and you can reach out to the project directors and start a conversation. It could be helpful.
Yeah, and in CRIS and also in the data gateway, you can access non-technical summaries of the project, so you can see, what kinds of things they have proposed and got funded.
Okay, Tom, the next question is about the limits, suggested ranges for funding for SREPs.
Yeah, and that's a good question. And as I explained while I was talking about CAPS, what we want you to do is we want you to work with stakeholders to identify challenges and issues that need to be addressed. And once you have identified the challenge, then figure out what your objectives are going to be in order to meet those challenges. And then build your budget in order to achieve the objectives. And if you go over the historical median, but you can justify, why those costs are necessary to meet your objectives, then you will not be disqualified because you went over the historical median. What I was going to say is if we have had projects that had like 7 or 8 objectives and tried to budget to stay within those guidelines, and the review panel says, well, number one, there's no way they can do 8 things in a 4-year period of time, and number 2, they couldn't do these 8 things in 10 years with that budget. So you want to make sure that your budget is appropriate for what your objectives are, and you want to keep your objectives achievable within the project period. So don't promise the moon and then ask for a ride to the down to the corner. You know what I mean? Figure out what your objectives should be and create your budget based on your objectives. And remember that probability of success is really important. NIFA wants to fund projects that are going to be successful, that are going to achieve their objectives.
Okay. How will you group proposals to address controlled environment agriculture versus traditional open field farming for the stakeholder review?
Hi, Sonny, how are you? We have, for the last 5 years or so, we have had a separate panel for controlled environment agriculture. And we have experts from those industries looking at those projects. So it doesn't matter what the crop is, and that's another one of those issues panels, the controlled environment agriculture.
Okay, I have a note that Jessica would like to answer this next one.
I was trying to type it in, but accidentally said we'd answer it live. So how can we access these slides later? This whole presentation will be posted on our website once it goes through 508 compliance.
And I also will probably send it out on the listserv.
Yeah.
I will.
It'll be on the SCRI program page. Sorry to speak over you, Megan.
Okay, David Byer is asking if we can provide a response to our previous full application. Is there any advantage to do that? I'll answer that one. And Tom, you can add on, but that will be a piece of the full application if you're invited to submit a full application. In the pre-applications, we're not looking for a response to either your pre or your full application from a previous year. You can reference that. And if you want to include some of that information, it would be a part of your narrative and included in the page limit for your narrative. You want to add anything to that, Tom or Jessica?
No, I think you covered it.
Great. Okay, what about the page limit for full application for a planning project? I don't remember.
Yeah.
10?
It's 12, I think.
10 or 12?
Yeah. It will be in the request for full applications, that page limit.
If I submitted the SRS multiple times, will you accept the last version? Yes. So we, as Jessica described earlier, in case you submit and then you realize that one of the documents didn't load properly, or maybe you found some other error, you can submit again and we will accept the most recent version that is submitted. Okay, Carl is asking, I see a list of universities for past funded projects. Have there been small businesses funded in the past? Is there a list for these funded projects? They are all listed in those, all the projects are listed through Chris and the Data Gateway. So that's not exclusively university projects. That's all the projects that we funded. Either of you want to add anything else to that?
I was just stretching my brain trying to remember if we have funded any projects to a small business.
That North-South Institute?
That's an NGO.
Okay.
But we have funded projects to entities other than universities. I just can't remember if we funded a business per se. One of the problems with a lot of businesses are looking for operating funds, or they want to do research that's proprietary. You know, these are federal dollars, and so you have to make the data at some point. The data has to be made available to the public, and so a lot of companies don't want to do that. So, well, and now I do remember. Well, it wasn't, the funds did not go directly to the company, but we have, you know, Toro, John Deere, a lot of equipment companies have been parts of projects, particularly where we're looking at automation, sensor technology, and those sorts of things.
Okay, so the next one is related to the limits on the SREP funding again. Some of them were over 4 million. Under what condition will this happen?
Just as I explained, create your budget so that you can achieve your objectives, and make it very obvious in your budget narrative how that's going to happen, how you're going to use those funds to achieve your objectives. That's what the panelists look for. And so again, there's no hard cap. We wanted to manage expectations, because what we found was project teams were kept adding objectives, and then they weren't successful because the review panels would say there's no way they can achieve all these objectives in that amount of time. So make your objectives achievable and create your budget based on your objectives. If you do that, you won't have any problems.
Next question is about whether letters of support could be reused in a resubmission. And I'll take this opportunity to just talk about that. The goal here is to impress the reviewers of your application. And so it's fine with us to reuse your letters of support. And if you present them in such a way that the reviewers see that as a sensible thing to do, if you think that reviewers might question it, then you might make another decision.
I would just say for the relevance review, it's best to have current letters.
Okay, what % of proposals are funded? About 15, 12 to 15 usually.
Yeah, so last year we had 75 full applications and we funded 25. So I can't do that math in my head very well.
Next, let us assume if there are 2 SCRI proposals in the same specialty crop and earn 95 out of 100 points or outstanding category, how is the decision made, or are both funded? Go, Tom.
Thanks. Yeah, so what happens in the scientific merit panel, they review it for scientific merit, we combine it with the relevance review, and we put it on what we call a ranking board. And we have different categories. We have outstanding, high priority for funding, medium priority for funding, low priority for funding, and do not fund. And then within each one of those categories, we rank them from the best down the list. And when we make our funding recommendations, we start at the best application and we go down the list, and we do not pay attention to whether one crop is getting funded multiple times. We want to fund the best science. And so there could be, multiple aspects of a particular cropping system that all need to be addressed. And so we do not limit funding based on, there's no quota for the individual crops. And Jessica says she wants to chime in on that too.
No, I think that you covered it. Yeah,
Okay.
we're looking for the
Jessica,
best.
when you click on answer live, it tells us that you want to answer it.
Got it. Sorry, I'm just trying to clear these from the queue.
Okay. How much fluctuation can there be between the pre-proposal budget request and the full proposal budget request?
That's a really good question. Because of the matching requirement, some institutions are telling their investigators, look, we want you to create a budget that we can match. If you get invited for a full application and Congress has given us the authority to waive the matching requirement, we have been pretty generous with allowing additional budget requests to be made between the pre-application and the full application. Remember, though, that we asked the industry reviewers to review the relevance. And so you have to make a budget estimate in the pre-application. And our industry reviewers look at that and they say, yeah, for that money, this project is relevant. So it can't be, I would say 30 to 35% variability. The other thing we've discovered is that sometimes project teams forget to include the overhead in the budget estimate. That's 30% right there. So we've allowed a 30 to 35, 40% variance.
Okay, the next question is about the targeting the amount to request. And I'll say something and then pass it to you, Tom, just that the key here is for your budget amounts to match the work that you're proposing. Some of the comments that we hear reviewers saying sometimes, either it's not enough money for what the group is proposing to do, or the budget is clearly overly padded. So that's a big piece, is just having a budget that reflects the work that you're proposing to do. You want to add anything to that, Tom?
If I can stop coughing. Just the only thing I would add is that we don't make funding recommendation decisions based on the size of the budget. We start with the best projects and we go down the list until we run out of money, and that's how we do it. So I would not target a number.
Okay, last question on the list. Is there a particular format for letters of support?
I would say, the one mistake that some applicants have made is they think, it's quantity over quality. So they'll send out form letters and they'll have people, they type in their name and they type in, it's obvious especially at the relevance review stage, it's really obvious that the person who is signing that letter did not write it. It has a lot more impact if the letters of support come on, the company letterhead or individual letterhead, that they talk about how they were engaged in in developing the project objectives, those sorts of things. You want them to be individualized, and so there is no format other than you want the relevance reviewers to know that this person took the time, is invested enough in the project that they actually spent the time developing the letter.
But it doesn't really matter if you address the letter to us or if the letter is addressed to you. Those kinds of things are less important than the quality of that letter supporting specifically what you're suggesting to do.
Next one, can we allocate budgets for international collaborations?
Short answer to that is yes. International scientists can receive funding, USDA funding as, is it subcontractors? I think it's as a subcontractor. So yeah, and it's within limits. The international participation has to be of benefit to U.S. agricultural systems. So that's an important consideration. One of the considerations you might any funding that an international collaborator brings to an SCRI project is automatically non-federal funds, and so it can be a significant part if the matching requirement is reinstated. But we do allow it. We encourage international collaborations.
Okay, when will the RFA be released for the full application? Will it be at the same time as invitations to the full application? Our goal is to send the RFA at the time of the invitations, but sometimes what happens is that the processes of getting the RFA through the channels of approvals delays that. However, we have gotten started early on that this year, and we're hoping that we might even be able to send it out ahead of the time for invitations, so that even as you're waiting to hear if you're going to be invited, you may be able to see the RFA so that you can do that preparatory work. So we don't have a definitive answer on that. Okay, no other questions on the list at this time.
None in the chat feed.
I don't see any in the chat.
I've been answering some via text, so.
Okay,
There was one that might be worth addressing, Tom, about if someone is resubmitting and they've made substantial changes to the project or added or changed team members, making the decision about whether it's a new project or a resubmitted project. Do you want to make any comments about that?
yeah, I think it was Lois actually that asked that question. If so, NIFA funds objectives. So if the objectives have changed or the project team has changed to, significantly, then it would be a new project. If you have the same objectives and you're adding maybe one or two new team members to address maybe some comments from the previous review, then it would be a resubmission. Sometimes scientists feel that being rejected is a, sort of a black mark on their professionalism. But in this instance, being a resubmission gives you the opportunity to respond to the previous review. And we allow up to 5 pages of additional text in the response. So you can talk about, well, this is, one of the reviewers said this, we have made these changes, and you can find the improved procedure on page 7 of the project narrative. So it gives you an opportunity to really address what you heard, in the previous review, and alert the reviewers of the current panel of where things can be found.
Okay, there's a question. Does the format for the full proposals change significantly from year to year? For many years, the answer to that was no, there were not many changes. And last year, we did some analysis and made some substantial changes to the formatting. And with the results from that, we said, well, we're going to tweak it a little bit more. So there will be a few more changes from last year to this year. So you will want to look at the new RFA before you finalize your formatting. But the content is substantially the same.
Okay, we don't have any open questions at this point. We're at the top of the hour, so we did the whole thing in about 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Not bad. A lot of good questions. You have our contact information, as Megan pointed out. We are going to we're going to post this whole presentation on the SCRI webpage on the NIFA website, so you can go there. And John King is asking, can you send us the link for the webinar recording? The answer to that is yes. Megan is planning to do that. And everything will be available on the website. There's going to be a transcription. Everything will be there on our website. And Megan has raised her hand.
Jessica, will you go to the page that has the program code on it, please? I'm not sure what number slide it is.
I said John King. I'm sorry, it's Joan King. I'm not wearing my reading glasses, so things are a little blurry.
There we go. I just wanted to underscore this on the bottom there. The program code is important for getting your application to the right place. People put all kinds of crazy things in there. SREP, CAP, French fries, So the SCRI program code is an important piece of information. So that it gets to the right place and we can get it in the track to be reviewed. All right. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right.
So this is the first time I've ever made a presentation that was interpreted by American Sign Language interpreters. So if you ladies would please send me an email and let me know, how we did. We want to make sure that we're doing this as well as we possibly can. So we appreciate your help, Michelle. We appreciate your transcription help. And also, we would ask you, this is the first time I've ever had a live transcriber. So if we're talking too fast, if you can't understand my Southern accent, whatever it might be, we would really appreciate the feedback. Okay, everyone. Thanks for your time. Goodbye.